Good morning. Namaste. Welcome to day 7 of my road to rapture. Just playing this beautiful piece of music by Kamari and Manvir. It's from their album Shakti's Grace, and this track is called Kundalini Awakening. I'll pop the link in the comments below. Today's live, a little bit late, but hey, that's how it's flowing today. It's called Questing for God and Love in Sex and Man. And really, I'm going to attempt in the next half an hour to summarize what happened in the span of about 10 years or more, following on from my sharing yesterday, when I had this next level awakening of my sexuality, of my sexual energy in the world of Tantra. So let me just turn the music down. So welcome. If you haven't met me before, online or in person, I'm Shakti. I'm a priestess of love and sacred sexuality, and it's my passion to facilitate women in their journeys and paths of sexual and spiritual awakening. I've written this book called Rapture, A Guide to Sexual and Spiritual Awakening for Women, which is going to be published finally on Saturday, October the 9th. There'll be more information about that, but I'm going to just get on with the with my sharing for today, and I'll put the links to the book launch event and the course that goes with the book in the comments when I've completed. So yesterday's live, I was sharing about the way that I discovered the world of Tantra, first through a tantric lover who was a follower of Osho, and then closely following on from that, my experiences in the first couple of Tantra workshops that I went to, and this astonishing revelation to me. I had no idea, like completely no idea that such a thing was possible, to experience Kundalini, sexual Shakti, life force energy flowing through my body. I had no idea that was possible. I'd never seen it. I'd never read about it. I'd never heard about it from anybody. And then I just had this experience that literally blew me away and catalyzed this complete shift once again in my life path. You know, it ignited this flame of desire, and just a soul's calling really was ignited in my heart and in my womb. And from then on, really, I just continued to follow wherever I felt called, in my body, in my womb, in my heart. There was never a conscious, rational, logical thought process of, I need to do this to become that. I want to become a facilitator of sexual awakening for women. That was never in my head. It was just, this is where I need to go next. This is where I need to go next. This is where I need to go next, right? But before I go on to just kind of describe and share some of the things that did happen next, I just want to take you back a moment to what I was sharing yesterday, which was to this mind-blowing experience for the very first time of what in you know, the realms of the fields that I'm in can be called streaming, or Kundalini streaming, or what are other words for it? My mind's gone blank. But anyway, to have that experience for the first time, and to understand that there are things beyond my comprehension that I simply did not understand, had no clue what they were, right? I had no clue what that was all about. But I was wondering if maybe some people who listened or watched my sharing yesterday, when I was talking about that experience of this Kundalini energy like rippling through my body, and as it was doing so, just erupting emotions, erupting movements in my body, right? I was wondering, I wonder if people are listening to that and thinking, what's that got to do with sexuality and what's that got to do with spirituality? Maybe, I don't know. If you're already on the path, you'll get it totally. If it's something that's new or a little bit unfamiliar to you, you may be wondering. So I thought I would just explain that a little bit from where I am now and from the understanding that I have now. So, of course, I had no idea what was happening then. As I understand it now, that energy that was flowing through my body is and was Shakti, the energy of the divine feminine, the energy that creates worlds and that creates all of life, a transpersonal, cosmic, divine, intelligent energy, which is the encapsulation of the divine feminine in her highest expression. And we had done practices to activate that energy in the body, right? And then to encourage it to flow through and up the body, through the chakra system, through the many meridians and channels of the body. And as that was happening, emotions that had been repressed were coming out. Energy that had been blocked was being moved and shifted and realigned. And this wasn't any kind of conscious from me, it wasn't anything I was controlling or making happen. This was what the energy was doing with its own divine cosmic intelligence. And I guess to my great credit, the one thing that allowed that to happen, because like I say, I had no idea that could happen, so I wasn't searching for an experience or trying to make an experience happen because I didn't know that was possible. But to my credit, the one thing that made it possible was my willingness and capacity to surrender totally and allow this energy to overtake me and to drop into a no-mind space where I had no self-consciousness. I did not care less what happened. I was willing for anything to happen and I just let it happen. And I could see in the space around me other women or men having a challenge with that. And really, like, again, with what I would say about that now is whatever was blocking that for them is what would be blocking you in your opening to your deepest sexual pleasure and in your ongoing opening to the evolutionary intelligence of the divine Shakti. And there's no shame or blame in that because, you know, we all have multiple layers of conditioning and programming and wounding and trauma, all of us. Anyone who claims not to is a liar. We all do. And we're all here on this journey of awakening and all of us doing the best that we can with what we've got, right? But anyway, just to come back to that energy and the way that it was clearing emotions, moving energy, unblocking. So for me, this, you know, even when I was sobbing with tears, even when, and then laughing raucously the next minute, you know, all of this was for me in a way blissful and ecstatic. Even movements that to the outside world don't look ecstatic were ecstatic because I was surrendered and at one with this divine energy. And afterwards, the feeling of complete oneness, complete unification, complete embodied auric bliss, complete openness to the wonder of the world and nature and the universe, a sense of connection between me and everything, right? This is what happens when we open to this energy in our being. And this is the same that can happen in lovemaking or in energy healing and energy work. You know, you may go to an energy healer or a sexual energy healer who hands above the body or hands on the body works with your energy. It's all the same. So this is the potential that is there. So this is when we need to begin to expand our idea of what is sexual and what is spiritual from the very narrow focus that we've been trained to put on it in terms of just imagining genitals, intercourse, and that's it. No. There is so much more. Ultimately, you come to the recognition that sexuality and spirituality are the interplay of the divine forces of masculine and feminine in all of life and in all of our being. So on a grand scale, this lovemaking is happening everywhere all the time. Right, so I just wanted to make that clear. Back to the workshop. Back to that sense of like this soul, heart, womb ignition, a calling to the tantric path, right? And what it was about that really lit me up and was just, I felt like I'd found my home place, was the bringing together in the tantric pathway of sexuality and spirituality as one, not as separate, not as distinct, not as split. It was the bringing together of sexuality and spirituality as one in the body, right? Not out of the body, in the body. So it's a path of bringing heaven and earth together and merging them in the body, of bringing sex and spirit together and merging them in the body, in life, not trying to escape life, but through the nitty-gritty real of life. That is what called me. And if you've been following these lives, it brought together that erotic innocence that I had from the moment I was born, and this desire, this eros that was there, and also then that longing for the divine that kind of came online the moment I began to shift into puberty. So Tantra brought these two longings together that society had taught me was split and separate, and offered me a vehicle and a pathway and practices for those to merge within my own being. And for me, this answered my very personal quest to figure out how the hell I'd been through 2 marriages and had left, with 2 kids, and the feelings of guilt and shame and self-blame and not understanding, how that had happened. So looking to understand relationship for myself and heal whatever it was within me that was creating that. I wanted to heal, I wanted to understand, I wanted to shift my relating and my sexuality onto a higher plane. Again, not knowing how to do that, but hungry for the answer. And there was this calling to evolve that really had been seeded the moment I took my first training in the conscious dance practice way back in 2003, I think. So this was my hunger, this was my desire, voraciously wanting to learn, to understand, to evolve, to awaken, whilst being fully in the body and fully able to express my sexuality, my desire, my passion, and my love of the body, because I'd been an athlete, a dancer, a sensual person from the very beginning. Being in the body is key for me, So I wanted to find a way to bring all of these elements together, and Tantra was the answer. So then off I went for the next, that was about 2008, and it's just been ongoing ever since then. Trainings, workshops, retreats, studying, reading, practices over and over again, workshops, life experience, Kundalini yoga and meditation, Reiki master, body worker in about 3 or 4 different modalities, psychodynamic couples counseling. I did a year of that and then dropped it because I found it didn't work for me in the exclusion of the body. So that form of psychodynamic psychoanalysis, interesting as it was, wasn't for me, but I did a year's worth of that and got my certificate. Authentic relating, conscious dance, Tantra, satsangs with masters and gurus, all of these things, right? Beginning to teach. So I was already a teacher of conscious dance. That was, something I trained in way back. Now I was adding all these other modalities on and beginning to offer those. So beginning to teach in London, at festivals, at retreats in the UK and abroad. And after 10 years of teaching the Nia technique, I developed my own dance practice called Dance Into You. And then I discovered this amazing teacher of sexual awakening for women called Shakti Milan. She has passed on. Sorry, I'm just kind of feeling that in my heart. I discovered Shakti, and she was based in South Africa, but she came to the UK quite often to teach. And I was so drawn to the power of her teachings, the way in which she embodied the power of the divine masculine and feminine, and the way in which she was continuously questing and evolving herself on her own awakening journey. So she became my mentor. I trained with her. Again, this was just a calling that I just had to follow. I didn't know how I was going to pay for it. I didn't know how it would work with childcare, because I was a single mum to 2 young kids. But somehow life supported me, and I went to South Africa to do my facilitators training with her, and then came back and immediately began to share what I'd learned while continuing to apprentice with her. And in those days, my workshops were called Juicy Woman. It was amazing. So life kept supporting me every time I felt called to take a workshop or called to take a training. I was on quite a low income as a single mum. None of it came easy, but every time there was this true impulse, life supported me. Somehow friends coming to help babysit the kids, somehow the money appearing to pay, sometimes getting a discretionary scholarship, like somehow it just always worked. Life kept supporting me. When it came towards just before my 50th birthday, I was in Glastonbury, taking a week's rest and retreat for myself. And now you may remember in one of my previous sharings, when I was back in the States, I'd begun to have this very subtle kind of psychic message telling me, go to the West Country, go to the West Country, go to Glastonbury. I had no idea what that was about. All of a sudden around that time, I'd begun to discover Glastonbury as a place that called to my heart without knowing why. I just felt at home there. I felt the power of the energies there. And while I was in Glastonbury, on that sort of just taking time for myself, a friend emailed me and she said, oh, are you there to do the Priestess Training? And I said, what Priestess Training? I didn't even know about it. So I looked it up. And actually, I looked up the wrong one, not the one that she told me about. And I discovered that there was an initiation, a year-long spiral to initiate as a priestess of love and sacred sexuality at the Glastonbury Goddess Temple. So again, I felt that calling in my whole body, and I knew there and then I was going to do it. Lo and behold, for my 50th birthday, I did a crowdfunder and all my friends got together, and the amount of money that was raised was exactly the amount needed to pay for my priestess initiation. So that was what I did in my 50th year. And around about that time, while I was taking that spiral, that year-long training, is when I birthed the next dance practice called Dancing the Goddess. And that is something that just came through when I was doing my practices to invoke the goddess, which I did every day, and commune with her. She just said to me, you need to create a practice, and it's called Dancing the Goddess. And so I did, and I have. Now, this all sounds, and I know I'm going really fast through things, and there's so much I could share in terms of experiences and practices. So here's the thing. What I want to highlight is that there was and there is still a shadow and a light to all of this unfolding. So I was doing very dedicated meditation practices, very dedicated practices of Shakti awakening, very dedicated practices on my priestess path, constant self-inquiry, constant practice, constant study, constant embodiment of this path, because this is not an intellectual path. You cannot progress along this journey without embodiment and without experience in the body. It doesn't work to think about it or intellectualize it, right? So that very dedicated part of me, right, was there all the way through, like really sincerely dedicated. And in my life experience, exploring it for the real and really going pretty wild and crazy in some ways, and having all kinds of incredible experiences ranging from blow your mind ecstatic to abject heartbreak. So everything within my being that was unconscious was coming up. Even if I didn't want it to, it was coming up. And it really, like, if I look back, when I think of all the practices that I was doing to activate my energy and to meditate, no wonder all my shit was coming up. And to be honest, sometimes it was a little bit more than I could handle. Sometimes it was more than I could understand or fathom, but I was doing my best all the way through. That much I know sincerely. Now, there was one thing about this that kind of, what would I call it? I would call it a theme, I suppose, that with hindsight I can see way more clearly than I could see it then. And this is why I would say to anyone who is called to this path, wherever you are, it really pays to have a mentor, to have a guide, to support you in seeing the shadows that you're blind to. Because I certainly was acting out some of my shadows and remaining blind to them for quite a while, even though I was doing all this inner work to connect with the light, right? So I just want to be really honest and really clear that on this path, it is about the embrace of our shadow. And, you know, sometimes that's not made clear, I think, or not made obvious, because everyone goes for the light and everyone goes for the ecstasy, and everyone thinks, yippee, like, oh, I can be multi-orgasmic and have whole body energy orgasms and feel this bliss and commune with the divine. Like, yeah. And as you do that, everything that is not in the light will come to the surface. Be ready for it. Be ready for it, right? So this one theme that was there for me was within Tantra, of course, it's premised upon the polarity of masculine and feminine, Shiva and Shakti, right? This divine union, this sacred union, this divine dance between the principles and energies of the divine feminine and the divine masculine, stillness and movement, wisdom and love, pure consciousness, creativity and activity, right? These two energies. So Tantra is based upon the understanding that those polarities act within us, between us, and all around us as the cosmic principles of creation. I loved this because I was a romantic and I was longing for God, and I was longing for this experience with a man. Now, putting those tantric principles together with some of the new age ideas of twin flames and sacred union and divine union, what I was unconsciously doing, I see this now, I didn't see that then, was projecting this onto the men who were my lovers or with whom I entered into relationship. I had a lot of lovers for a while, a lot. And I was getting entangled with men who didn't share that vision, had no understanding of Tantra, meditation, or any of this stuff, were not on the same path. And this caused me a lot of suffering and a lot of pain. So alongside all this evolution, this development, this growth, this expansion, that was balanced out with moments of dark nights of the soul, moments of complete heartbreak, moments of complete despair, moments of complete hopelessness, moments of being down on my knees, just saying, God, Goddess, help me. I do not know what to do at this point. So I'd been through quite a few of those as well. What was at the root of that? I couldn't fully see it. Like I knew it on one level, but it took another massive event in my life, which I'm going to share in one of the next lives, to fully bring this piece home. And so, you know, I was projecting my longing for love and God onto sex, finding what I thought was love in sex, and finding who I thought was God in man. Big mistake. It's only ever within. But I had to learn this. But the root cause of it, just checking the time, was low self-worth and codependent conditioning. And those were two things. The self-worth I was aware of and really doing work on. The codependent conditioning I couldn't see. And, you know, looking back again in all of these sharings, I'm just being radically honest with you about my own process, because I believe this is the only way I can be. That's it. I had a lot of shame around being a single mum. I had a lot of shame about being a single mum on a low income. And I really believed that a man would not want me because of those things. So I feel quite sad to say that now, looking back, because, oh my God, how beautiful am I? Oh my God, how loving and kind and gorgeous am I? Oh my God, how amazing are my kids? I still, like, now looking back, I'm like, oh my God, any man would have been blessed to be graced by me, my children and my gifts. But at the time, I didn't see it that way. And I hid this shame and I hid this low self-worth from the world. So there was still an element of split in how I was presenting and how I was being. And this wasn't conscious. Of course, we don't do these things consciously, you know, but it felt so shameful to admit that this is how I felt. Not all the time, but sometimes about myself. So I still wasn't fully aware and fully embodying an awareness and an honoring of my magnificence, of the sanctity of my womb space, of the preciousness of my heart. I was giving my riches away to men who could not appreciate them and who did not share my vision or my life path. And in so doing, I was creating heartache for myself and suffering. But every time there was that kind of rupture rather than rapture. So I was having rapture, rupture, rupture, rupture. Just change the vowel. Yeah, like rapture, rupture, rupture, rupture. You know, that's how it was going for me. And that's not to say this is how it would go for you, because we all have our own unique path. We all have our own unique karma, dharma. We all have our own unique wounds, traumas, and signature, right? So don't expect that your path is going to be like mine, but I'm very happy to lay mine bare for you to receive the gifts and the lessons and the benefits. But one of the wonderful things about this was that over this period of time, I went from basically from an external focus increasingly to an internal focus. So from when I started out on my journey, it was like, I want to find God, sex, and love out there, right? And over time, as I had these rupture experiences, and alongside all the practices, studying, training, and teaching I was doing, the focus came closer and closer and closer in to myself. Didn't get there yet, but in further lives we'll get there. But I was still, it kind of was going from out to in, and from the more gross to the more subtle. So experiences of ecstasy and bliss becoming more refined, more subtle, and less dependent upon the physical, I guess I would say. So every time there was a rupture, there was a growth. There was a blossoming. There was a deepening. There was a coming closer to me. the true me without all these layers, without all these wounds, without all these traumas. Yeah, kind of like taking off layers and layers and layers and layers, shedding skins and getting closer and closer and closer in to what's really here. I think that's where I'm going to leave it today. Tomorrow, I'm going to share about the first moment the seeds for the idea for this book were planted. Exciting. So, yeah, I'm ending just feeling the emotions of everything that I've shared. Yeah, I feel that in my heart. It's powerful, it's vulnerable. This is what happens when we open and we journey. Oh, is there anything else to say? I just feel like there's something else. No, there's nothing else. So come and join me tomorrow when I speak about how the idea was conceived and the title for the book, Rapture. And if you want to join the book launch event on Saturday, October the 9th, I will put the link for that underneath. And also the information for the course, Rapture, which the book is an accompaniment to, where you get me as your mental facilitator guide for 5 months as we journey deeply through this material, and you have me on hand to support, to love, to transmit, to ignite, to channel wisdom for, to offer insight to as you journey. Thank you so much for watching, for being with me, and looking forward to being with you again tomorrow. Lots of love. Sat Nam and Namaste.